Are you like me and have trouble keeping track of all these projects up in your noggin? Or maybe you're just looking for a place for all your ideas to live cozily together. Or maybe, just maybe, you want an excuse to do fun, colorful things in your bullet journal. If any of these apply, or maybe even all of them, it's time for a custom spread. I realized in my previous video, I went and I showed a custom spread that I had made to keep track of things like statistics and analytics on YouTube that I called my YouTube recipe book. But nowhere in the video did I actually talk about the concept of a custom spread and what it means and how you can use it for your own journal when it comes to content creation. Along with defining what a custom spread means, I figured I'd also go through the kind of process and questions I ask myself when it comes to deciding to make a custom spread. If you'd like to chat about journaling concepts or about anything really, you can find me live on Twitch 4 days a week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday nights. If you can't find me live on those, you can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram and keep in touch with me that way. But yeah, let's dive right in. First, I'll start off with a definition. Essentially, a custom spread is what it sounds like. It's a spread for you in your bullet journal that's customized to whatever your needs may be. Keep in mind when it comes to the core concepts of bullet journaling, the main spreads tend to be things like the index, the future log, the monthly log, and the daily log. So while those can be customized in further to be something that fits within your lifestyle, these are the general core concepts that everyone that I'm aware of puts into their bullet journals. So even really common spreads, things like a habit tracker, are actually custom spreads that aren't part of the core concept. But with definitions out of the way, this is the process I actually go through for myself when it comes to thinking and narrowing down what I want to do for a custom spread. The reason that I had to stop and start asking myself these questions is because I would start making custom spreads, then they would start eating up a lot of real estate in my journal because I would never revisit them. While there's nothing wrong with setting up a spread and not using it later, sometimes you realize if you do that 5-ish times, there's like 5 to 10 pages in your journal that could have been used, but otherwise just sit there, abandoned, alone. Personally, I consider the following. They're basically the 5 W's, if you're familiar with those. First, I ask myself who. Essentially, who is this spread going to help? And when you go ahead and ask yourself this question, I hope beyond all and everything else, even if you don't listen to the rest of this video, that the answer is just yourself. No matter what you're using your journal for, just remember it's a tool for you to help you kind of understand, grow, and reflect on yourself. So don't let anybody or anything convince you that you need to have anything in your journal. While it works for some people, it may not work for others. There really is no right or wrong when it comes to what you want to put in your bullet journal. That's kind of like what I enjoy about it. There's the flexibility to it. It's not, a hard set planner that says, you have this many days in the year and this many days in the week and you have this many hours in the day. Instead, if you think like that, you can put that in your bullet journal. If you don't think like that, you don't have to put it anywhere. So say if you think it'd be great and relaxing to have something in your bullet journal, like a place where you just doodle all your feelings, do it. Does it help you plan anything? Not necessarily, but it's your journal. If that helps you, and that's basically all you need. I share my streaming journal with you guys where I kind of keep track of analytics, statistics, what I've got going on, and how I can apply the bullet journal method to streaming and this journey of mine. I actually have a separate personal bullet journal that I use for all my feelings. Sometimes, in some weeks, I just have spreads that take up 2 pages of me just word vomiting. It helps me sort through feelings and such, but does it help me with planning or anything? No. Does it help me as a person? Definitely. The second W you can ask yourself is what? Basically, a spread should have a focused topic. The example I gave earlier was a habit tracker. There are a lot of habits you're keeping track of, but the singular focus is to track your habits and the progress you're making towards these. Since my journal is specifically about streaming and projects and content creation, I kind of tend to make custom spreads that are titled with whatever project I'm focusing in on. I'm very much the type of creative person where ideas, they just come and go. Sometimes they arrive and they leave immediately. So I've created this custom spread for me called brainstorming, where I can just put down an idea. In this brainstorming section, I can put down anything I want. It can either be an idea that ends up being trash and I just throw it away and don't think about it, or it's an idea that becomes a spread all on its own and becomes a bigger project that I'd like to explore. And that's the beauty of it. I just dump whatever's in my brain, put it down, figure out if I want to do anything with it later. Sometimes it turns into something great, and sometimes it's just a nice place for me to keep track of everything. We can all agree creativity is one of those things where it comes and goes in waves, and sometimes it's just nice to have a place to capture it so you don't lose it in all the chaos of everything going on. The third W you can ask yourself is where. Essentially, where does this fit into your actual journaling habit? If you are newer to bullet journaling, it's not always easy to figure out your habits when it comes to journaling. But I think it's a solid idea to try and look at yourself and your lifestyle and consider, if I add this spread, is it something I'll actually use and revisit? Say you have a new spread and you want to keep track of healthier habits. Completely normal. Say you could keep track of things like how often you've exercised, or how many times you've snacked in the day, or how many glasses of water you're drinking in a day. If you already have the habit of checking your journal every few hours, it wouldn't be out of the way for you to go in and check off, had a glass of water, check 1, had another glass of water, check 2. All means, go for it. On the other hand, if you only check your journal a few times a day, it can be difficult to suddenly force yourself to go from only checking it a few times a day to having to check it every few hours. Sometimes forcing yourself to go into your journal more often for a custom spread may have you feel overwhelmed, and you end up disliking the spread before you even really get a chance to learn anything from it. Of course, there are other ways to keep track of things like that constant without having to go into your journal. There are digital apps and other things that can help keep track of those things for you to then fill into your journal at the end of the day. But the general point is just to keep in mind your habit with your journal, the relationship you have with your journal, and how often you're willing to actually work with the spreads that you create for yourself. An example for me is I've considered the idea of making a spread where I write off times where I would like to clip things to use for later content. At the same time, I don't want to have the pen, my notebook, and fiddle with it while people are expecting gameplay from me. But in theory, I could make the same spread and just wait till after I'm done streaming and fill in all those times. I'm not gonna remember the exact time when my decision cost me everything in Fall Guys. Fourth W, think about why you want this spread. Essentially consider what value this spread can give to you. I have created spreads before only because I saw other bullet journal artists, bullet journalist. I don't know what the correct title is. But anyway, because I saw somebody else using the spread in theirs. I remember in my older personal journals, every month I'd be like, you know what? I'm making a books read spread because everybody's doing it and they seem to like it, and they fill it in and it looks so pretty. It's like a bookshelf with all the titles that they read. And guess what I don't do? Fill it in at all. One, I think it's because it's not necessarily my style. I was trying to force other people's styles on myself. And two, I don't actually have a good habit of reading. I do like reading, and I read here and there, but not enough that I think I could actually fill in a mini bookshelf for a full page, like once a month. And there's nothing wrong with those types of spreads. If you're an avid book reader, feel free and do it. You'll probably enjoy seeing kind of your history of reading, and maybe even give yourself a chance to reflect on, I like this book, I don't like this book, I like this author, and I don't like this author. All valuable information if you're really into books. I love books, but I'm not a book person, I guess you would say. I just got wide-eyed and bushy-tailed and went, you know what? I'm gonna use this whole page for that. And that was a page I could have used for something else that made more sense for who I am. Like in this journal, in this particular spread, I literally just have the Twitch logo. It doesn't necessarily mean anything from a whole, but for me personally, it's valuable to me to see kind of where I shifted my journey from being a streamer mainly on Mixer to trying to transition into the world of Twitch. The last W is when. So following up on the question of why, also ask yourself when you'll be using this spread. I kind of adopted this general concept when I was deep diving and trying to learn about all the fundamentals to minimalism. And I guess you can kind of hear that when I said in the why question of think of the value that this is bringing you. Now when I go buy clothes, I look at an item and I go, you know what, how often or when will I wear this? Essentially, it's basically looking at the spread, considering, is this a one-off thing? Will I use it twice at most? Or is it something consistent that I'll actually find useful and want to keep using over time? If the answer really is you're only using the spread once or twice, does it really need to be a whole spread? Or can it be something you tuck away in your future log to look at later when you have the time and availability to look in that certain item? Or potentially it's something you just would like to remind yourself in a digital calendar of sorts, an app, an alarm. So yeah, reflecting on what I've done in the past, I would sometimes make beautiful spreads, make a beautiful title, loved it, loved the colors, loved the concept, would take up 2 pages. So basically, if you held a book flat, it was the whole spread, and then not use it. It would just sit there all by itself. I know a spread that I have right now in this journal that doesn't get much love is actually my charity planning event one. So if you look at it, I really only have this one event planned. So in theory, I could have just had a dedicated page where I went in for the day and just went, you know what, these are the incentives I want to have, these are the goals that we worked out as a team, and what I have planned for streams for this charity event week. But on the other hand, I also would love to do more charity type events in the future. So while this spread is not getting a lot of love and attention right now, it has the potential for me to come back and use it in the future. It's kind of like that interesting balance where there's a little bit more content here than what I would want to fit in a future log, but there's not so much constant content that I'm necessarily using the spread very often. So there is that weird checks and balances system that you can have with yourself for implementing spreads. Thanks so much for hanging out while I go through this bullet journal concept with you. I hope that it helps you out in some way. Please let me know if you do. If you are a fan of this type of content, please like and subscribe. And if you have any other bullet journal concepts, ideas, or questions that you think you'd like me to go over, please leave a comment doing so, and I'll be sure to get back to you.